Now we're going to our next speaker. It was the Mr. Ralf Busse, the Herr Ralf Busse from the
Yes, hello.
CIP Mobility GmbH.
Yes, in the meantime, very honored to speak on behalf of the CIP group and its daughter company, CIP Mobility. We already heard today quite interesting presentations with regards to mobility and the infrastructure around electric mobility. What I'm focusing on during my presentation is to give you an outline of how we, the CIP group, how we understand sustainable innovation and what we are trying to drive into the market. The combination of our, let's say, internal analysis always includes the current challenges that we see around us every day. My example is I was born in Munich, but I was raised in Brazil, lived a few years in São Paulo and in Rio de Janeiro. And the pictures on the left, I'm not showing now pictures of a nice beach, but if we see pollution, traffic jams and all of that, and also health issues, all of this is very relevant. And unfortunately, I have to admit that over the last couple of years, even those pictures, not that dramatic, are also happening in Munich and in quite a lot of countries around Europe as well. So for us, it's always important to take the current challenges that we see and to combine them with the global trends. And ultimately, out of those two, this is where we take the drive for innovation. And what I will present to you was exactly the outcome of this analysis. Looking into mobility and the very amazing examples we already had today from especially Ego, definitely what we call the more classical types of mobility, there is a lot of innovation happening. We also have here, let's say, major companies that are constantly working on and improving their offering to the customers. The way that we see mobility is a little bit different, not to say that the other forms of mobility are not important, not at all. Each form of mobility has its predominant space, but we would like to focus and do a more deep dive into micromobility, because this is where we see the biggest gap for the challenges that we face today, especially in urban areas. And so this was, let's say, our pivotal focus, and to define new ways and new modes of vehicles that we define as smart pedal vehicles. But designed not for the B2C purpose, designed for B2B, and I will give some examples of what B2B means for us. Interestingly, we're not talking about something that is, let's say, only designed or engineered in Germany, in Europe. It is something that is also truly made in Germany. And what we mean by that is that the vehicles that you see here are produced in Germany, and the benefits that we want to achieve here is definitely with regards to sustainability on the full scope of supply chain. So this is what our main strategy was here. Coming back to micromobility and the different user scenarios and use cases that we see that I just briefly described as B2B or made for commercial use, we're defining a platform of smart pedal vehicles that allow multifunctional ways of transportation modes with limited new types of vehicles. I think everybody is pretty well aware of the trend. E-commerce was a trend already for the last 10 years, but it's increasing, and Corona is doing definitely coming on top. We see the sharing philosophy is today definitely in the middle of our social part. So not owning vehicles, but being able to share is becoming very, very popular and very important. And ultimately, big companies that today have cars are looking into CO2 neutral vehicles. So all of this combined, this is exactly what we're focusing on, and this is where we are defining new means of innovation. Just one step back. Definitely, a lot of things are happening thanks to digitalization, and we have seen very interesting developments in the common industries over the last decades. We are fully aware of that. What does it mean for us? For us, CIP, it means that the product and development philosophy has to take digitalization, but combine it with smart hardware. A lot of startups, especially also in the US, are usually or typically focusing more on the software side for various reasons. As a startup, it's definitely quicker to develop things in the software part. But for us, it's pivotal that these two combined, this is what makes true innovation. And this is what we adopted in our unified product and R&D strategy. We see on the left side everything with hardware, which includes our chassis, our vehicle platform, and the drive unit, which I will outline at a later stage a little bit more. This is one very important pillar of our innovation. What does it mean when we talk about chassis? We will, end of this year, bring the two-wheel vehicle and a trailer solution into the market. The production method behind it is, let's say, very similar to what Dr. Ulrich mentioned from EGO, because what we are adopting here is automotive standards, but applying it to the micromobility section. And for us, using new materials that are not being used today in this segment is very important for us to achieve new qualities, to have a lean production. And I will give an example. The wheel that you see here is made of one process. I think everybody has a common wheel, spoke wheel in mind, with very different small components. By the way, for typical e-bikes and pedelecs, 95% of those coming from Asia. So we are having here a very lean production method where all main structural parts come from one tooling. The wheel comes from one tooling, the frame comes from one tooling, and also the fork comes from one tooling. So this is, let's say, our objective and strategy to develop new means of smart pedal vehicles, and to link this directly with software and IoT. This is for us very important from the get-go, not to focus on one or the other, but combine these two. And the example that I would like to give here is the drive unit. We are using here a digital drive unit. What does it mean? We have an alternator where pedaling, I am producing and generating energy. I have no physical chains, no physical components. It is linked directly to the motor, and then through the battery, it gains additional energy. So legally speaking, it is an e-bike. That is very important, especially here in Europe. But this is what we define as a digital drive system. So no having physical constraints. For a customer perspective, this has a huge advantage when it comes to costs and maintenance and repair and services. For us, it has huge benefits when we talk about the development of our upcoming vehicles, because we're all using always the same key components. We're not using different motors. We're not using different alternators. We're maybe including or adding one or two batteries in addition. But all of this it's a core platform that we have here. What does it mean for the user? And now we're going a little bit into the software and IoT part. It means that I can digitally select the drive mode that I want. If I'm a person that wants to do a sportive mode, I can. If I'm a very weak person, I can give it the highest support. If we talk now about B2B applications in the logistics sectors, not having a chain means that I can, let's say, ride 8 hours per day and not be at the end of the day very exhausted. So it has a lot of benefits from a B2B customer perspective with regards to costs, but it also has a lot of benefits with regards to the possibilities for the driver. And then focusing on IoT and software, because it's integrated and linked with this digital drive unit, I will give 2 examples that make that very precise. For example, in the city center, this system could be reduced with the speed up to a certain limit, let's say 15 kilometers per hour or 10, depending on which area the vehicle is. If I'm moving outside of a city, it could go up with the velocity. So I have a lot of options thanks to this digital drive unit. And combining this with different fleet management software systems or after sales services, those are very, let's say, common things for us. But this, let's say, I think highlights and gives a good example of this combination of smart hardware and smart software and focusing at the end, or giving the customer the focus to do what he needs actually to do in his business. Looking back again on the customer side, already with this 2-wheel vehicle, and again, way more to come. And we see also here different box applications, which is definitely part as well. If we talk about fleet campus, if we talk about food, beverage, utility service, where we see actually the biggest gap, because this is where absolutely 100% little cars are used. Even logistics, knowing that logistics, the volume is more important. So the 3-wheel will be, let's say, more of focus. But we also hear quite often that within company areas, there are vans being used for very small parts to be, let's say, transported from one factory to another. So we have a huge variety of user scenarios already with our generation 1 vehicle. And so this is, let's say, in the end, the offering that we have for our customers, giving functionality on the hardware side and the software side. And I'm again very honored to be able to speak here today, because what we are currently doing, and this is, let's say, already being reflected here on this slide, is we're looking for interested pilot customers. One of our founders comes from Greece, and obviously for us it's a more than welcome thing to do, to also let's say offer pilot projects. I was very interested in the speech about Asipalea. I think there are a lot of ways where we could include our let's say full scope solution. Once again, thank you very much. I was trying to keep it very brief. For questions anytime. Thank you.